The year was 2004. Mark Zuckerberg launched a little known website called Facebook. Greece won the 2004 Euro football tournament, and Shrek 2 was released in cinemas. In the video game world, the Nintendo DS was released and would become the best-selling handheld console of all time, and would also see some of the best video games ever made. GTA San Andreas, Halo 2, and of course the sequel to one of the most influential video games of all time, Half-Life 2. Half-Life 1 was released in 1998 and left many people excited to see what Valve would do for the next Half-Life. Unfortunately for them, they would have to wait 6 years to get their answer, or in my case, where I didn't play Half-Life 1 until a few months ago, only had to wait until my internet decided to download it. But even then, I was excited to see what Valve would do next. How would they improve on one of the most groundbreaking and influential games of its time? When playing a sequel of any game, people expect certain things: an improvement on previous gameplay mechanics, the introductions of new ones, an interesting story, and of course, better graphics. When Half-Life 1 was released, computer games were already making major steps in graphics, but the change from 1998 to 2004 was probably one of the most important leaps in the gaming world regarding graphics. Games went from looking like this to this, but Half-Life 2 really took it a step further and set a new industry standard in video game graphics for many first-person shooters. Just imagine you're in 2004 and you launch up Half-Life 2, excited to play it, and the first cutscene is this. The facial animations, the lip sync, the sound are all incredible, and I know it would have blown my mind away. The thing is, nowadays we almost expect AAA graphics on all games. We do nitpick when the lip sync is slightly off, or people make weird facial animations. But Half-Life 2 in 2004 really was amazing graphics wise. The character design, the animations are a massive improvement from the first game. The design of the world looks more beautiful, and even the water looks better than most games in 2024. All of this is expected when there is a 6-year gap between the first and second, but what was not expected was the level of detail and the leap Valve made graphically, which shocked many people, myself included. The gameplay overall is very similar to the first game. It is a typical first-person shooter, however it does polish up on a lot of stuff from the first game. One thing I noticed straight away is the movement. Thank God they decided to change that. If you have watched my first video, you would have seen how hard it was to move in the first game, mainly because it has you running constantly at a very high speed, which can lead to many accidents. But they fixed this in Half-Life 2. The movement is still fluid, but not at an intense speed like the previous game. It gives you more time to think. Another cool feature they added was driving. I didn't expect this. I thought it would all be on foot, but once again Half-Life surprised me. The world itself is large, so you have a lot of distance to cover. This leads to a lot of exploration along the way. Take this level for instance. The first time you get a buggy, it opens up and you have to travel along a beach and roads to get to the next area. But of course, along the way there are enemies, which you can shoot down with a handy gun you have mounted on the side of the buggy. But also lots of places to explore, to find ammo and health, and to be honest, if you are an achievement hunter like myself, you try and find all the lambda caches. Now, to move on to something I was less impressed with, and that's the weapons. The weapons in Half-Life 2 were a bit of a letdown. You get the usual suspects, the standard pistols, shotguns, SMG, crossbow, etc., all from the first game, but you only get a few new weapons, these being the Overwatch standard issue pulse rifle, which has a combine orb as a secondary, the bug bait, which isn't really a weapon, and then the gravity gun. So that makes only 3 new weapons in the game, and only 11 overall, compared to the 14 different types of weapons and grenades in the first game. Now in the first game there were many weapons to choose from, and I will admit I did not use every single one of them all the time, but I think having the option to choose from them was more important. But even without the wide range of weapons, the weapons themselves were better in Half-Life 1. Guns like the gluon gun, the Tau cannon and the Hornet gun are all really fun games to use, and add a difference to just shooting with the SMG. Half-Life 2 missed a trick there by not bringing back those guns or putting in other guns to add variations. However, I do think the introduction of one gun did help this game out a lot, and maybe makes up for the lack of guns, and that is the gravity gun. Now this weapon, when you first get your hands on it, is a lot of fun, and luckily you get it early on in the game. You can pick up pretty much any object or item and fire it across the place. You can even pick up people as well. This adds so much play and variety to the game. If you're in an intense battle with a combine, you can pick up stuff to use as cover, or to use as a weapon and throw stuff at enemies. You can be hiding behind cover, spot a health pack, and drag it over to you so it can heal you. It really is a lot of fun to use, and when it gets upgraded in the final rounds, it is even more powerful, although maybe a little too powerful with it being a one-shot kill. But it is still fun, and I will never ever get tired of flinging people around the map. Luckily, however, they did improve on the enemies. You get the usual suspects from the first game, the headcrab, zombie and barnacle, but we also see different types of enemies, and some are a lot harder. The first and obvious difference is the human enemies. No more are you fighting the HECU soldiers, but now you are facing the Combine soldiers, who have apparently taken control. These are very similar, but with the obvious improvement of their own movement and how they act in situations. The more interesting differences are in the aliens, and let me tell you, Valve went into overdrive when creating headcrabs. From the one easily killable headcrab in Half-Life 1, Valve decided to double down on the headcrabs and make him one of the most common Zen enemies you face. You have the standard headcrab, which is easy to kill, the fast headcrab, which is harder to kill, and then the dreaded poison headcrab. Now if you let this one hit you, it will immediately drop you to 1 HP, until it slowly heals again, and it may seem like it is easy to dodge, until you realise Valve decided to create a poison zombie, which has 3 of them on at once. Once you kill the zombie, the headcrabs will continue to come after you until you manage to kill them as well, which makes for some interesting fights. The other Zen aliens include the Anti-Lions and the Anti-Lions guards, which you can eventually control later in the game with the use of the bug bait. And also there is the Manhack, which is probably one of the most annoying enemies I have ever faced in a video game. They don't do a lot of damage, but when there is a swarm of them, you can get easily overwhelmed, and they act like an annoying fly. Some of the bigger enemies, or should I say machines, that try and kill you are a lot more fun to play against, even if they are sometimes very hard to kill. These are the gunships and the dreaded Striders. Now the one good thing about this game is that they improved the use of the RPG. It's more of a seek-in missile, which you can control to avoid gunshots from the gunships and Striders, and use it to take them down. Now even though they improved on that, the actual enemies you face which you can use it against, the gunship and the Strider, are an absolute nightmare. The gunship is hard to kill, with you needing at least 4 or 5 hits to destroy it, whilst taking constant fire, but the Strider, oh my days, what a nightmare they are to kill. The one round where you must take down 2 Striders at the same time, whilst having no cover and Combine ground shoulders shooting at you, was one of the most chaotic rounds I think I've ever played in a video game. You are getting shot from all angles, and the bloody Strider will not die. I don't know how many times I shot at them, but to even kill one took forever, and those machines will haunt my nightmares for many nights to come. One thing they did take further, which I was impressed with at the start, was the follower mechanic, both human and aliens. The alien followers are handy, and can help take enemy fire away from you whilst you get into a better position, or to look for some health. The human followers though really got on my nerves. Maybe because I like to be a lone wolf in a game, but they were a nightmare, constantly blocking me or getting in the way, and generally not doing anything useful at all. Don't get me wrong, it felt cool at the start leading a group of people as a small army into battle, but eventually it just got tiring. By the end I was fed up with them. I can see the vision Valve wanted to do, and maybe in 2004 it was a cool feature to introduce, but having played games now where followers are so much more interactive about your personal space and don't harass you, it was hard to deal with. Now another talking point of this game for the people is the story. I've seen many videos and Reddit posts about how good the story is, and how annoying that they left it on such a cliffhanger. If you haven't played the game before, then this part will obviously have spoilers. The one thing that Half-Life 1 was praised for back when it was released in 1998 was how they handled the storytelling. It wasn't done through the traditional cutscene mechanic, which many games did back in the day and still do. The story was told with no cutscenes, and so essentially felt like one big flowing story, which in my opinion added to the immersion. And so when I launched up Half-Life 2 and started playing, I was happy they decided to double down on this way of telling the story. The game starts with a clip of the G-Man telling you that your services are needed again, and to wake up, which is a rather creepy introduction to a game. You wake up, as in true Valve fashion, on a train. Now the introduction is not as long as Half-Life 1, as that tram ride felt like it went on forever, but Half-Life 2, you arrive at your destination pretty quickly, and are free to move around. Like Half-Life 1, I did not know what the hell had happened since the previous game. You are dropped in once again and left to your devices to try and find out what has happened. Luckily, the game does tell you, but in part, and not all at once. The first main part is the announcement on the screen when you walk off the train done by the administrator, Dr. Wallace Breen, who was the former administrator of the Black Mesa facility, and now the administrator of the whole Earth. As you continue, you get processed, and then eventually separated by a civil protection officer into a room, and you find out it is Barney Callahorn, a former Black Mesa security guard, who is part of the Resistance. Resistance to what? You don't know yet. But Barney contacts Dr. Isaac Kleiner, who again is a character from Half-Life 1, and an old mentor of Gordon, who was a former scientist at Black Mesa. It is decided that you will go to Kleiner's lab, which as usual does not go smoothly, with you eventually getting captured and then being rescued by a young woman named Alex Vance. Alex takes you to Kleiner's lab, where you get told that Alex is the daughter of Eli Vance, another former Black Mesa employee, and is now the leader of the resistance against the Combine. You get reintroduced to your trusty HEV suit and get told you are going to be teleported to the Black Mesa East compound with Alex to help other scientists. However, this annoying headcrab messes it all up and causes the teleport to malfunction and send you to Dr. Breen's office first, who instantly recognizes you and puts all Combine soldiers on high alert. And then eventually you get teleported outside, where you'll have to go on foot through the old canals. Barney reunites you with your trusty crowbar, and your journey officially begins. For an introduction to a game, Half-Life 2 does it well. You are put into a situation where you are not too sure what has happened, and get reintroduced to all of the old characters from the first game, but this time they actually have a name attached to them and a bit more personality. You get told what your mission is, which is essentially join the resistance and help them fight back against the Combine, although you don't know too much yet who the Combine are or where they have come from, but a goal has been set. The way the game keeps you entertained throughout the story is by drip feeding you with new weapons and vehicles throughout your journey, which is a more interesting way of doing it. Unlike some games, where in a sequel you are given everything at once from the previous game, this game makes it a reward for completing each level by getting new weapons, or giving you a new weapon at the beginning of a level to add some variations to gameplay. For example, in the third chapter, Root Canals, you finally get some weapons, the pistol and the SMGs. Chapter 4, Water Hazard, you get an airboat to travel on. Chapter 5, you get the gravity gun, and this formula continues throughout the whole game, which made the game so much more interesting to play. The story itself is very similar in that aspect. You get to the end of the chapter and then something else happens, which you need to help with and makes the story more interesting as it goes on. Chapters like when you go to Ravenholm after being told by Alex that it is a scary place and you don't want to go there, which, by the way, after she said that, I instantly knew you were going to have to go through there. But navigating that area was really cool and added suspense and horror to the game, with the aliens chasing you and jumping out at you. But then other chapters when Eli is captured and you and Alex have to break into Nova Prospect, the prison, to try and free him. It is also very fun to play. You control an army of anti-lions, which you can use to break into the prison, which is a crazy round as expected, with bullets flying everywhere, anti-lions running everywhere, and just general chaos, which is very fun to play. Then eventually, you lead an army into the Combine Citadel and have a final confrontation with Wallace Breen, which is a great climax to the game, and the urgency of shooting the reactor to stop Breen adds to the excitement. And as the reactor explodes, the G-Man appears and freezes time, stating that you have done a great deal in a short amount of time and puts you back into stasis, with the game ending on one of the most frustrating cliffhangers in any game. After I finished Half-Life 2, I instantly knew why everyone had been asking for Half-Life 3, and also I could see why memes were made of it when it would be released. Half-Life 2, which was released in 2004, 6 years after Half-Life 1, made massive strides in so many areas, the graphics, the gameplay and the storytelling, and it really was an industry standard for games for many years. And I think once again it left an impact on the gaming world. But it's now been 20 years since its release, and Valve have been pretty much silent on anything to do with Half-Life 3, and I cannot even imagine how frustrating this has been for many people. I am fortunate, I guess, in some ways, that I've only played the Half-Life series recently, so I haven't had the 20 years of praying and hoping at every Game Fest that maybe Valve would say something, or give some news on it, or reading into every interview with a Valve employee, hoping to see some connection on when it would be released. But I will say, people have waited so long for Half-Life 3 that maybe that isn't a bad thing. Look at what Valve did in 6 years difference between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. Imagine what they could do with 20 plus years difference. The prime example is the amount of time difference between GTA 5 and GTA 6, which, hopefully, if there are no delays, will be a 15-year wait. But that trailer for GTA 6 is pretty impressive, and it looks amazing. People have seen what they did with Red Dead Redemption 2, and are expecting amazing things from GTA 6. One thing we can take away is Valve did release Half-Life Alyx on VR recently, and the graphics are amazing on that game. Yes, it is on VR, and maybe it was released to show what could be done on VR, but it was incredible graphics wise. So if Half-Life 3 is anything like that, then we are in for a treat. But, and this is a big but, Valve have to want to release it. They have, in some way, no incentive to release the game. They've had so many other successful games which are printing money. Dota, CSGO, Left 4 Dead, etc. Makes me think that maybe Half-Life 3 has been put on the back burners, and it is staying there. Some people do say it's because of the expectation that people have, and to be honest, that is Valve's own fault. By leaving it so long, the expectation of Half-Life 3 has in some ways become unrealistic. With many games nowadays disappointing fans, Valve may not want to tarnish this amazing game series. In my opinion though, they do owe it to the fans to make and release Half-Life 3. The culture and community surrounding this game 20 years later is still as strong as ever, and many people, which I can now include myself in after playing Half-Life 2, are eager to see what Valve will do with Half-Life 3, and to continue the journey of Gordon Freeman.